When Napoleon invaded Germany and approached Weimar, Goethe said, "One would like to be out of it." But there is no out of it. It is not that one ought not to do just what one pleases. It is simply that one cannot do other than what each of us has to do, has to be. The only way out is to refuse to do what has to be done. But this does not set us free to do something else, just because it pleases us. In this matter, we only possess a negative freedom of will, a nullitas. We can quite well turn away from our true destiny, but only to fall a prisoner in the deeper dungeons of our destiny. Theoretic truths not only are disputable, but their whole meaning and force lie in their being disputed. They spring from discussion. They live as long as they are discussed, and they are made exclusively for discussion. But destiny, what from a vital point of view one has to be or has not to be, is not discussed. It is either accepted or rejected. If we accept it, we are genuine. If not, we are the negation, the falsification of ourselves. Destiny does not consist in what we feel we should have to do. Rather is it recognized in its clear features in the consciousness that we must do what we do not feel like doing. Throughout our lives, everywhere we look, we are met with sexual images. We are met with sexual images in children movies. We are met with sexual images in TV shows and regular family movies. We are met with sexual images in all kinds of advertising. We even now have to deal with some of the most sexualized dance moves, such as twerking. And now, even if you do choose to step away from the TV, and you choose to step away from the dance halls, and go someplace where advertisements can't reach you, it doesn't matter because women's fashion has become so over-sexualized. One would have to totally get away, totally remove themselves from society in order to get away from it. And God forbid that you choose to read an American comic book, because every single female in American comic books are over-sexualized. I mean, there is absolutely no reason for these women to be dressed the way that they're dressed. Well, there is one reason, and that is to get a man who's reading these comic books to think sexual thoughts. But fortunately, American comic books have nothing on Japanese comic books when it comes to sexual images. Japanese comic books, also known as mangas, are so bad I can't even feature them in this video. All I can do is show you a picture of Japan. And of course, not all manga and not all American comic books are this way. It's just an overwhelming majority of them. There are some pretty damn good manga comic books, like One Punch Man, Attack on Titan, and a couple of other ones that aren't filled with sexual images, or sexually suggestive images. And I'm making this video to share with you all why I think that they are pushing sex on us so much. They will say, "Oh, it's just advertising. It's just an advertising ploy. It catches one's attention." I don't buy this, because this does not explain why there are sexually suggestive images in children's movies. Nor does it explain why they have changed the bottom part of the Maslow's hierarchy of needs pyramid, which used to consist of only the most basic needs: food, water, warmth, and rest. These are the basic needs for survival. Without these, you will die, and you will never achieve self-actualization. They have changed this bottom part of the pyramid from that to now saying this: food, water, sex, and sleep. Homeostasis, excretion, and of course breathing. Of course you need to breathe. So why have they put sex into the basic needs? Why are they trying to over-sexualize us? And here goes another one, right there in physiological. Breathing, food, water, sex, sleep, homeostasis, excretion. That's odd. I didn't know that if you didn't have sex, you would die. But yet, this is what they're pushing onto people. See, they are intentionally trying to over-sexualize us. All of these advertisements, all of these sexualized images, they're being put in front of us to over-sexualize us. So now the question that I ask is, why are they trying to over-sexualize us? Why are they trying to turn us into these sexual heathens? I'm going to provide 3 reasons why they're doing this. I'm first going to start off with one of the most commonly understood reasons, one of the most commonly understood things. And that is, as it says in this Daily Mail article, experts reveal the number of sexual partners you've had could determine how likely you are to get a divorce. In other words, one of the reasons is that they know the more sexualized a person is, the more likely they are to not maintain a long-term marriage partnership. And thus, the more likely it will be that kids will grow up in broken families. And they want kids to grow up in broken families, I believe, because if a child grows up in a broken family, it reduces their chances of becoming fully self-actualized. I believe it's very important, and it's actually necessary for a healthy self-actualization, for a child to grow up with the duality of both the mother and the father, because if not, they will have a distortion of either one or the other. And this is actually the third reason for their over-sexualizing. I believe that the purpose isn't strictly to destroy marriages. I believe that there are 2 reasons which then lead to a third reason, and I'm going to share the second reason for over-sexualizing people, specifically men, after I explain this third reason, where the 2 reasons are going to be heading to. And I think that the purpose of this all is to prevent self-actualization, or at least a healthy self-actualization, because not only does over-sexualizing the population destroy marriages and do the other thing that I'm going to explain in a minute, but it also makes one revolve their actualization around their lowest part of their being, which is their private region. That is their lowest chakra. They want people to self-actualize around there so that they can never fully self-actualize. What will happen is people will give up seeking any further self-actualization once they have achieved sexual gratification. So I think it's all about turning people into these sexual beings, and that is precisely what Maslow's hierarchy of needs is currently doing today, by including sex in not only that part, but in another part of the pyramid. But I'll be going over Maslow's hierarchy of needs in a separate video, and I will be actually breaking down Maslow's hierarchy of needs and how terrible it is in another video, as I said. But I'm going to just restate that again. They want people to become sexualized beings so that they can never become the intellectual being that we are meant to be. Once they have achieved that sexual gratification, their progress, their growth is pretty much halted. And this is why it's so wrong to sexualize minors and for older adults to enter sexual relationship with kids, because it arrests their development, their mental development. Once a child realizes their sexual power, they then orbit around that, and they give up progress in other aspects of their being. In short, it corrupts a child, it perverts a child, it causes a child to deviate from their path, and this is why it's sexual deviation, or sexual deviance. And this over-sexualization, arresting one's development, or halting one's progress in life, can be most easily seen in Japan, where I said that the comic books are way super sexualized. And not just the comic books. We need to remember that video games have also become very sexualized. It's something that I'm actually kicking myself in the butt for not mentioning earlier in the video, is that not only are comic books, TV shows, dance moves, fashion, and all these other things that I listed, children movies, not only are those over-sexualized, but let's not forget how over-sexualized video games have become. The sexually suggestive imagery in video games has also reached dangerously high levels. And the evidence for this, the evidence for my assertions, the evidence for the dangers of over-sexualization can be found in the ever-increasing hikikomori population, and the ever-increasing amount of herbivore men in Japan. I'll first start with the hikikomori movement. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, and if I'm not, well, who gives a fuck? I'm sure you understand what I mean, and if you don't, I'm going to be explaining what I mean right now. So hikikomori stands for pulling inward or being confined, i.e. acute social withdrawal, and they are reclusive adolescents or adults who withdraw from social life, often seeking extreme degrees of isolation and confinement. And now I'm going to prove that these people are pulling inwards. They're withdrawing from the social realm because they are over-sexualized and they are jerking off way too much. Here's a BBC article entitled, "Hikikomori: Why are so many Japanese men refusing to leave their rooms?" Here goes the hypothesis or the theory that this article suggests. Around midway of the article, after it goes into explaining the meaning of the word and like where it comes from or whatever, they say this. So why do they withdraw? The trigger for a boy retreating to his bedroom might be comparatively slight, poor grades, or a broken heart, for example. But the withdrawal itself can become a source of trauma. A powerful social force can conspire to keep him there. One such force is Sikinte. I'm probably not pronouncing that correctly, but excuse me, I'm not Japanese. Which stands for a person's reputation in the community and the pressure he or she feels to impress others. And this is an important thing to understand about Japanese people. They have a strong pressure to impress the people in their community. They are like some of the most whipped people, some of the most enslaved people in the entire world. They do not stand up to social norms. They do not stand up to the community. It's like they have no backbone. It's like they have no balls. And I'm going to connect that to this whole thing in a moment. So, the longer hikikomori remain apart from society, the more aware they become of their social failure. They lose whatever self-esteem and confidence they had, and the prospect of leaving home becomes even more terrifying. So this is the sophistry that they weave here in this article. However, this article goes on to give some attributes, some shared attributes that the hikikomori share. So these are the characteristics. An overlapping group of people with hikikomori are quote-unquote geeks or nerds. Such sophistry, such silly words, geeks or nerds, as if those words actually have any meaning in this context. So then it goes on to say, they are known for their obsession, especially manga, cartoons, and anime. Right there. Remember, I already pointed out that manga, or Japanese comic books, are some of the most sexualized and sexually suggestive comic books in probably the entire world. And so are their anime. Their anime is pretty bad, okay? So, otaku is the formal word for you in Japanese. It's thought that the term came about from the tendency of socially awkward manga fans to use over-formal language. So they're just saying that, like, you know, these people, they have this, that they use this overly formal language. And it also says that they're socially awkward. This is going to become very important in what I have to say after this. Another thing that they have in common is, in press coverage, both otaku and hikikomori have been linked with serious sex crimes. And now I'm going to give my hypothesis, and then I'm going to add some more stuff to this. So these people have retreated from the social environment, and they are socially awkward because they are over-sexualized, because they jerk off too much. This is actually where I believe the pejorative word, the curse word, or you know, the insult of calling people a jerk-off comes from. Because people who jerk off, they are socially awkward. And not only are they socially awkward, they have a number of other bad attributes. And this is where I'm going to take to my next step. And that is the negative effects of over-masturbation, of over-ejaculation. And before I present this material on the effects of over-masturbation and over-ejaculation, I'm going to say this to all of the skeptics. And I have to say this because every time I've mentioned this to other people, they say, no, masturbation and ejaculation is very good for you. It's good for your prostate. It's good for this. And they start just repeating what they've been told by the powers that be. They start repeating what they have told them. So, to these people, I'm going to say, why don't you try it yourself? Because this applies primarily to men. So to you guys who are skeptical about the negative effects of overmasturbation, why don't you conduct a scientific experiment with your own body, and why don't you go without masturbating or ejaculating, because they're one and the same. Just because you're releasing it into a woman doesn't mean that your body won't also undergo these effects. So why don't you go and not ejaculate or not masturbate for, let's say, 3 weeks. Go 3 solid weeks without ejaculating and see if you see a reversal in any of these symptoms. See if you see an improvement in your physiological performance. Now with that said, I'm going to now go over the symptoms and the negative effects of over-ejaculation, or as this article refers to, over-masturbation. And I will also say just very quickly, this article does not hit the bullseye. It gets very close to the bullseye, but there's some language in it that I myself would have chosen to state differently. So just keep that in mind. I may even critique this article itself. So it starts off by saying, your body has a reserve of hormones, nutrients, and neurochemicals it keeps to power your sex drive. Now here I would just say your drive. I wouldn't just say your sex drive. I would say it keeps to power your drive and your will to continue on. And then it says, OM, or overmasturbation, depletes the body of this reserve. Men who masturbate, and here I would say even ejaculate, in excess, do not allow their bodies to replenish hormones and neurochemicals needed for sex. And here I would say needed for living, for actually having that drive to life. So it says, because overmasturbation occurs in stages, men with multiple symptoms should review the table outlined in severity of sexual exhaustion. The more severe a stage, the more symptoms a man will showcase. Men should always resolve the most serious symptoms first. See here, this doesn't, to me, it's like you can't resolve the serious symptoms first. I mean, you resolve them all at the same time by not over-ejaculating or over-masturbating. So and here are the symptoms. Here are the things that it claims comes from over-masturbation or over-ejaculation. So chronic fatigue is one of them. It says, cortisol, a steroid hormone meant to increase blood sugar and metabolism, experiences an increase in production after masturbation. Proliferation of this hormone causes an invariable feeling of exhaustion. And this is where the trope of men wanting to fall asleep after sex comes from, is because it does exhaust a man. It does so much more than a woman, and it does so much more than a woman for several reasons, and I'll be going into them a little bit later. So, groin discomfort or testicular pain. Overmasturbation exhausts the pituitary adrenal testicular axis, which lowers oxytocin, DHEA, testosterone, and DHT production. Once these neurochemicals experience a reduction, the inflammatory hormone prostaglandin, E2, creates pain near the groin and testicles. Essentially what also happens here, the reason why your testicles go through some pain and discomfort after overmasturbation or over-ejaculation, is because you're overusing the nerves in that region. You're basically doing some nerve damage when you overuse them. So it goes on to say, penis shrinkage. Overmasturbation reduces the amount of growth hormones present in the body. Without growth hormones, the body cannot replenish penile tissue necessary to maintain the penis's size. This sounds a little ridiculous, but the fact is that the cells in your body are constantly dying off and having to be replaced. The less growth hormone your body has in your body, the less capable it is of replenishing all of those cells. So here, and once again, guys, you can try this yourself. Go without ejaculating, go without over-masturbating, go without masturbating for a couple of weeks, and you will see an increase in your penis size. Not only will you see an increase in your penis size, but as you will also see in this article, you will also experience stronger, harder erections. And this is also why I think that so many men are having to now rely on sexual performance enhancing drugs, because they're just jerk-offs. They've just overused themselves. They've exhausted their body's natural supply of those sexual hormones that now they need to obtain those things artificially. So anyway, another one it says is premature ejaculation. Overmasturbation depletes HGH, which is human growth hormone. It's actually supposed to be HGHF, human growth hormone factor. Testosterone, dopamine, and serotonin, neurochemicals that strengthen both the endocrine system and the parasympathetic nerves inside your body. Without these neurochemicals, the parasympathetic nerves that control an erection become weak, resulting in premature ejaculation. See, this right here, I think that this results in weak erections, and I don't know how that will play a role in premature ejaculation. If anything, I think that premature ejaculation is caused from other more psychological things. So it also causes prostatitis. I'm probably pronouncing that correctly, but it's known as prostate inflammation. Prostatitis enlarges the prostate and impedes urinary flow and erectile capacity. Masturbation elevates DHT in the body. When too much DHT is present, the neurochemical inflames the prostate. So this actually totally debunks this idea that masturbating, ejaculating, will combat prostate cancer. It's actually the complete opposite. And once again, guys, you can try this yourself. When you go like a week and a half or even a week without ejaculating, you will see that you actually piss better. Your urinary flow is way improved. Another thing is it causes insomnia. So melatonin is a neurochemical that induces sleep. Men who masturbate in excess see a depletion in their melatonin that leads to insomnia. And this is another thing, guys, that you will see will happen. If you stop masturbating, you stop over-ejaculating, faster, you'll fall asleep faster and you sleep better. You'll sleep like a baby, okay? So another thing is stress and mood swings. So cortisol elevates blood sugar to help manage stress, except overmasturbation increases the production of cortisol to such high levels that it causes more stress. Meanwhile, low testosterone levels caused by overmasturbation results in mood swings. And this is, I have a little analogy, and I say that men, after they masturbate, their body goes through like a hormonal and neurochemical shitstorm that is equal to when a woman is going through her period. And this is why men who overmasturbate basically are experiencing menstruation. They're going through a male version of their menstrual cycle. And it's true, trust me, if you cut masturbating out, you will see kind of elevated anger levels from increased testosterone levels, that testosterone buildup, but it will eventually, your body will eventually come to a homeostasis, and you'll realize that you'll be way more chilled out, you'll be way more in control of your attitude and your mood. So the other thing it says here is thinning hair. Yep, I believe that overmasturbation, over-ejaculation, is why so many men are losing their hair now. Men are becoming bald sooner and sooner. And it's not just because the stressful living, it's also because of the overmasturbation that is happening in our society. So thinning hair. Overmasturbation leads to excessive testosterone DHT conversion. In response to the imbalance, the body produces cortisol, which induces high levels of prolactin and reduces DHEA, HGH, human growth hormone factor, and testosterone production. The sudden shift in neurochemicals causes hair loss. And not only does it cause hair loss, but once again, the lack of human growth hormone factor is also reducing hair loss. Because now your body is not focusing on regenerating or regrowing the cells that are in certain areas. It prioritizes the most important cells that it needs to regrow. So then it goes on to say, I believe the last one here is weak erections. Because overmasturbation depletes necessary hormones for sex, the body cannot experience, and here there's actually a grammatical error. So the body cannot experience a dearth in necessary neurochemicals. Instead, the body is left with a limited supply that renders a male unable to maintain a strong erection. So now I'm going to return back to a couple of things that I glossed over and I said I would return back to. So before, you remember that I said that the Japanese, they cannot stand up to their society. They are some of the most socially abused people on the planet. And as I said, it's like they have no balls. And I believe it's because they are over-sexualized, they are over-masturbating. So they have actually been like neutered. They're like neutered dogs. This over-masturbating, this over-ejaculation, pretty much neuters them. It pretty much removes their balls. It removes their manhood. It removes that drive, that strength to be a man, to stand up to their environment. Because all of that over-masturbation, all of that over-ejaculation is driving their testosterone levels down. And testosterone is heavily linked to confidence levels. And now this being a man, this inability to be a man, as I said before, brings us also back to these herbivore men, these grass eaters. See, now, these grass eaters, which I said are also experiencing an increase in Japan, they are very much like the other isolated Japanese that I mentioned. So the herbivore men, or grass eater men, if you look at their Wikipedia, is a term used in Japan to describe men who have no interest in getting married or finding a girlfriend. The term herbivore men was also a term that is described as young men who had lost their manliness. See, these herbivore men are pretty much the same exact thing as those hikikomori. The only difference between the herbivore men and the hikikomori is that the herbivore men, they use their herbivoreness, they use their grass eating, they use this vegetarian or this vegan lifestyle to just build up their social image. And trust me, a lot of vegetarians, a lot of vegans, they're vegans, and I know plenty of them. They're vegans for social reasons. They're vegans to pretty much say to other people, I'm holier than thou. And it's just, they're putting on a show. So these herbivore men, they're pretty much the same exact as these hikikomori, except that they're hikikomori who are also trying to maintain some kind of social status. They're trying to appear like they're monk-like. They're essentially, trying to express that they're men in another way. And I'm not trying to crap on vegans or vegetarians or anything like that. I'm just stating something that I've observed in other people. I myself, I am a ovo-lacto vegetarian, which means that I eat eggs and I drink milk and I have some cheese products. And I will admit that once in a blue moon, actually less than once in a blue moon, every so often, like once maybe every 3 or 4 months, I'll have some meat. But the only time I will have meat is at some kind of family gathering. I only eat meat when my family has cooked meat and I'm partaking in the same feast as them. And even then, oftentimes, I won't eat their meat. It's not like I'll have their meat. God, this sounds all perverted, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. I'll have their meat. Yeah, sorry, I'm just digressing into a joke there. But I'll only eat my family's cooked meat. Oh my god, that's awful. Anyway, I'm just going to say this, and I'm going to try not to be childish and over-sexualized with it. So I'll only have, like, the meat that my family cooks every so often. I won't even have it every time they cook it, every time there's a family festivity. But anyway, that's just me sharing a little bit of something about myself and trying to explain that I'm not trying to dog these vegetarians or these vegans. And now, before I restate my hypothesis and I state my conclusion, I'm just going to quickly say why over-masturbation affects men more so than it affects women. And that is because when a man masturbates, they're using up their genetic material. When a woman masturbates, when she orgasms, she is going through like a chemical shitstorm in her head. She is getting a dopamine dump and stuff. But her body isn't using human growth hormones to quickly restore their genetic material. In other words, the man's sperm. And now, restating my hypothesis, stating my conclusion actually at this point, and my conclusion is that they over-sexualize us to prevent us from achieving a certain level of self-actualization, and to emasculate us and to basically neuter us so that we become more submissive, so that we don't stand up to the powers that be. And I'm going to finish my video off by saying that I believe that they are actually behaving like succubus, and I actually believe that this is where the story of the succubus comes from. I think that people had some knowledge of this, and I believe that they tried sharing this knowledge or preserving this knowledge in the story of the demonic succubus.